Today I would like to tell you a little bit about some of the learnings that we have gotten about poverty. In the first 22 years of our existence, we have been single-mindedly helping the Philippines. Second thing you need to know about ICM is that we are focused people. We are single-minded in our efforts to help the poorest people in Philippine society. There are still 25 million Filipinos who live on less than $1.25 per day. That's 50 pesos per person per day. That's the worldwide standard for extreme poverty. And the United Nations says if you live below $1.25 a day, then you live in a condition that threatens your survival. But at ICM, we have a special focus on the absolute bottom of the ladder, below the level of extreme poverty. We call it the ultrapoor. That is men, women, and children who live on less than 50 US cents per person per day, 22 pesos per day. The ultrapoor, those trapped in the worst kind of destitution, those are our specific focus. And in the Philippines alone, there's about 7 million ultrapoor people. And for these people, life is not just difficult. Every day is a struggle to survive. So among ICM's ultra-poor in our programs, the average income is just 26 US cents per person per day, or 11 pesos per day. That means not having enough money to buy some of the most basic necessities like food. 27% go to bed hungry at least once a week. 55% don't purify their water, which leads to sickness and illness. 13% are seriously ill at any given time. 41% live without electricity. And 24% of all of the mothers in our program have had one of their own children die. 8% of all mothers have had more than one of their own children die. Those are extraordinary, extraordinary contexts. And when you encounter such harrowing ultra-poverty, the first thing you have to do is you have to show great compassion. So we want to give love, show dignity, extend respect. We want to play with the kids. We want to listen to mother struggles. We stand alongside families. But that by itself is not going to change their lives, right? So as business people, we also can feel compelled to create strategies that will bring long-term impact. Great compassion coupled with great strategies will bring great change. We call our methods a business approach to fighting poverty. We're taking the wisdom that we've learned in the business world and applying it on the ground through an amazing team of local staff who understand the complex needs that the poor face. Now in business, when you wanted to improve performance, then you focus on a business's return on investment. And at ICM, we use a similar metric. We want to bring the most for the least. We always want to be more effective, more life change for the ultra-poor. We want to be more efficient. We want to use less resources. We've developed a 4-month training program for the ultra-poor that teaches them lessons in values, health, and livelihood. And at the end of only 4 months of instructions, we see a 95% increase in household income, a 31% reduction in serious illness, a 24% decrease in chronic hunger, and scores of other changes in their lives. We are able to deliver an entire 4-month comprehensive program for a fully loaded cost of just $10 US per family member. That's 500 pesos. Now that is not $10 per month. That is not $10 per year. That is $10 period per person that we help. As a charity, how do we compare ourselves to see if we're over or underperforming? Perhaps the most impressive secular anti-poverty reduction strategy in the world right now has been developed by BRAC. They've rolled out their graduation from ultra-poverty method to more than 1 million households in Bangladesh. And there's 24 other countries that are now implementing this method because it is so widely acclaimed. On May 15th, just 2 months ago, a 6-country randomized control trial was released. Huge, huge study. And it showed that this graduation from ultra-poverty program works. It creates, for an ultra-poor family, $300 of extra income than they would have not had if it had not been for the program. But to implement this program, BRAC spends more than $1,000 US per family. That means if you take 1 million families through it, that would cost you more than $1 billion US. So it is very expensive. Now, in early 2015, at ICM, we started partnering with Yale University, the very same people that did the study with BRAC. And the statisticians are still analyzing our data, but the preliminary analysis shows that an ICM family that goes through our 4-month program would earn $361 additional per year than if they had not participated in our program. Now, if you compare our results then with that the BRAC program, what we find is that we have similar impact. In general, they create about $350 of income. We create $361 of income. But they spend $1,000 to $2,000 per family. We spend $50 per family. That means that we generate nearly a 50-fold increased return on investment compared to that best-in-class program. Now, how could ICM possibly achieve that similar result as a best-in-class program for a fraction of the price? We believe that a faith-based distribution system creates scalable, high-impact solutions to poverty in a way that is almost impossible to replicate by secular distribution means. Finally, the 5th thing I want to tell you about is that ICM is pretty big. We're huge. 15 years ago, when I got involved with ICM, the charity's annual budget was about 3 million pesos. In the next dozen years, ICM grew nearly 100-fold to 250 million pesos per year. In the last 2 years, our budget has again doubled to nearly 500 million pesos per year. During the last 2 years, we've grown from working with 2,000 communities to working in nearly 5,000 communities. In October 2014, just over a year ago, we graduated our 500,000th Filipino family member from this 4-month training program. And in May, we graduated our 600,000th family member. We have taken about 1/4 of all of the ultra-poor people in our target provinces through this 4-month program. And give us a couple of years and we want to get over half of all of the ultra-poor people in the entire province going through a 4-month training program. Now, we were able to achieve these growth rates by focusing on scalable solutions. We operate through 10 bases in the Visayas and Mindanao, and every one of our bases is configured identically. We know that every potential solution consumes management time, so we try to focus on solutions that can be rolled out universally in all of our bases. And depending on how you measure it, ICM is now one of the biggest local charities in the Philippines. But few people have ever heard about ICM. Now, why is that? Honestly, it's a little bit by design. We are not trying to get to be famous. And the only reason we want to tell you guys about this is perhaps some of you have the resources to help us to increase our effectiveness. We believe that those efforts that we have done over the last decade and a half have the potential for changing a lot of lives. And if our numbers are right, our statisticians are right, the results of ICM's efforts over the last decade, because of what we've done, 41,000 fewer people now suffer from hunger every week. 57,000 more enjoy purified drinking water. 34,000 family members now fewer live with scrapped roofs, and more than 150,000 Filipinos now have been delivered from ultra-poverty. I want to move away from that academic presentation and get a little bit more personal. On a day like today, all of us are sitting here and we're really enjoying lives. You know, I feel like I am. I think that our lives that we live are really completely separated from the world that ICM is dealing with. Here we are, beautiful air-conditioned room, all dressed up, enjoying our meal, enjoying each other's company, and there probably, for many of you, there's probably 100 different things on your mind. But what I want you to do is take a moment to imagine with me. Imagine that you are a different person, that you were born on the coastline of a rural island in the middle of the Philippines somewhere. Your father is a farmer, and so you grew up with the rhythms of the fields dictating the rhythms of your lives. And in the seasons of plenty, your family has enough money to get by, but only enough. But between the harvest season, then hunger is a constant companion. Life is simple. But when there is drought, when there's crops fail, then there is no food. And you are the youngest daughter of 7 children. 2 of your siblings died at a young age. Your brothers never went to school at all. Your sister dropped out before they entered high school. Your brothers, they work as runners in town. The girls marry young, and after several years, they're having babies of their own, and the cycle starts all over again for them. And in your heart, you promise to yourself that this will not happen to you. You are committed to make it through high school, to do better than your family, to do better than your parents, and because then you think that you will be able to help support your family and help to get them out of this problem. And your secret dream is to go to college and to study mass communications. You love telling stories and you want to tell those stories on television. So you kind of want to be an anchor woman on like those ladies, those people you saw on the black and white TV at your neighbor's house. But one day your father is taken by the police. He's accused of stealing and, as far as you know, wrongly sent to jail for a short time. And suddenly he's gone from your life. And so that limited margin that you had of survival has gone away. Your mother just can't support everyone, so you have no choice. You take a part-time job down at the pier. You go to school in the morning, and then you go to work down at the pier every evening. And as you do that, then your grades begin to suffer. And as you sit there skinning fish and your nose filled with a salty smell, you try to remember what your teacher said that morning about the equations, but you're pretty tired and you didn't have breakfast and you just can't concentrate. And so the next day, you wake up and you're too ashamed to go to class because you didn't have your homework to turn in. And so you head down to the pier again in the morning, this time in the afternoon. And when you come home that night, you actually have more money than normal. And your mother's really pleased because that means that there's a little bit more food for the family that night. And soon it becomes a regular pattern for you. You haven't dropped out of school, but you're missing more and more days of school in order to keep food on the table. And before you know it, you failed a few exams and you can't move up to the next grade, and then you're pretty embarrassed. You don't want to stay with the younger kids in the next grade. And so your dad is released from jail, and he tells you that the best education you can get is by working, and he thinks you should go work in Manila where the real money is. And so you reluctantly agreed. And here you are at the age of 14. You moved to Manila without any family. You work as a housemaid for somebody else's family. Life is different from everything you have ever known. The language is different. The hours are exhausting. You live in a closet. You don't know anyone. You long for home. After 2 years, you beg your mother to let you come back. So when you're 16 years old, you return to your village, and you're committed to try again. And so you start school again, now at a lower level, and so you're out of age, but you figure it's going to be a little easier because now you're older and you can kind of compete a little bit better. But it turns out exactly the opposite. It's harder than you remember. You're older than everyone else in your grade, and you don't really remember about studying, and then you meet a boy. Nobody really ever told you how babies are made, and you never really heard the words birth control. So before you know it, you're married, you're working down at the pier again, but this time you have a month-old baby strapped to your back, and you realize that you've become what you promised yourself you would never be. And that cycle, it all starts again. Now, if you jump forward 20 years, then you're 37 years old, 5 people in your household. It's you, your husband, 2 of your children, and your youngest child with special needs. Plus, you have your brand new grandchild. Your 25-year-old daughter's husband left to be with another woman. And so your daughter had to leave your household to go find work because the baby didn't have enough to eat. And so she left you to take care of this precious little life. Your husband works in the rice fields. Your unmarried daughter does whatever she can to bring home cash, but it's just not enough. And it's hard for you now to even help your family because you need to focus on your grandson. And to top it all off, you've just been told that you have 60 days to leave your house because the landowner wants to sell the lot. And one day, as you're sitting there crying inside because you have nowhere to take your family, there's a knock at the door. And Pastor Jerry walks in and he starts telling you about a meeting that he wants you to attend at his church. You think to yourself, how is a meeting ever going to help me? I need money, I need a house. And he says, well, there'll be some food there. And you think, okay, all right, I'll be there next Tuesday. That is how I personally met Maritess. And what I just told you is Maritess's actual life story. Now, that may sound a little bit unusual to you, a little extreme, but it is not. Her story is far too common. In fact, we chose her because she is statistically at the middle of everyone that goes through ICM's program. She is better off than many others in her community. And I could sit down with any one of the hundreds of thousands of people ICM works with, and I have to tell you that their stories are amazingly common themes. Hunger, hard work, injustice, instability, feelings they've failed, illnesses, lack of education, lost hopes, buried dreams. Let me tell you a little bit about our present circumstance. Her husband, Balthazar, he works as a rice laborer. Now, he doesn't get paid cash at all for his work, but he's given his salary in the form of unmilled rice. Now, he hopes for 3 harvest seasons a year, but many times if there's not enough rain, then there may only be two harvest seasons a year. And every time he does an entire season of harvesting, he is paid between 10 and 15 sacks of unmilled rice. And they are able to sell each of those sacks for about 900 pesos. Now, you spread that income across a year and split it between 5 people, and that means in a good year, Maritess and her family are right at the ultra-poverty threshold of 50 U.S. cents per person per day. But in a bad year, they live far worse, struggling by on $0.25 of each person per day, 10 pesos. And since their income is erratic, they're hungry on a regular basis that leads to malnutrition. They borrow money. They constantly live with incredible stress that comes from being unable to provide, eat, or plan for the future. Now, Maritess is similar to the vast majority of ICM's participants in that she does not own the land that she lives in. They are at the whims of an absentee landlord. When ICM met Maritess, she told us that she was being kicked out of the home that she had built. The landowner was selling that piece of land, and so within the next month, she would have to find a new place to live. Now, with no savings and no one helping her, she literally had no idea what she was going to do. Now, let me ask you to, again, put yourself in Maritess's shoes. Imagine that in those shoes, you agreed to attend these Transform meetings, but you don't really know what to expect at them. The first week you show up, and some of your friends are sitting there in the room as well, but quite a few of these people, you don't know them very well. You recognize them from the community, but you know them very well. You hope that this meeting is not going to last too long. You're kind of wondering when the food will come because that's really all you're here for. And 2 women, they welcome everyone. They say that you're now part of the Transform program. They're from ICM. It's an organization that helps poor people. And these ladies, they seem nice enough, but you're pretty sure that this is all really a waste of time. You have to listen as Pastor Jerry talks about the community, how working together can make a difference for everyone. And this lady called Phoebe from ICM, she talks about the power of planning for the future. And the other lady, she uses this big piece of paper to draw a map of your community. And your neighbors, they all chip in to mark their homes on the map. And then each person walks to the front, and it becomes your turn to walk to the front and mark your home on the map. But your heart is filled with despair and shame because very soon you don't know where your children will be living. After 90 minutes, the ICM program is over. You take your food packs home and you walk home, and you don't really want to go back again next week. But your neighbor Josie, she knocks on your door and she invites you to come with her. So you go with her, and the 2 of you sit together. Phoebe explains that this week you're going to get some hands-on training. She's going to show you how to have your own organic garden. She'll give you the seeds to get started. And you think to yourself, growing food? Well, now that's something that might actually help me. And So you take that gardening kit home, and when you get home, you tell your husband about it, and he actually gets excited about it. The next thing you know, he's planted these seeds, and the plants are thriving, and a few weeks later, they're ready for harvest. And during the Transform meeting, these ICM people, they break everyone up into groups of 5, and each group has a counselor. And during that small group sharing time, each person talks about the challenges they are facing. And you summon up all the courage you have to tell them that you have nowhere to live. And it feels actually good to tell someone, and all these people, they all seem to care about your problem. And as the weeks go on, you find yourself looking forward to those Tuesday afternoons. Now, of course, those food packs are a help, but more than that, you love listening to the enthusiasm and encouragement of the ICM trainers. You see your neighbors putting the lessons to work. Together, you're learning about nutrition, about how to keep your babies healthy, family planning, how to start your own small business. And you start to take to heart what they're saying, and you think to yourself, maybe I am here for a purpose. And you start to think that maybe I am worth something. Maybe I actually can change my life. And you talk to the other women about your housing situation, and you learn that one of those ladies in your group, she has a little bit of extra land, and she might be willing to rent it to you. And Pastor Jerry, he helps you negotiate the deal, and this huge weight gets lifted off your shoulders. And you thank God, you thank your pastor, you thank your community for all their support and help. Because not long ago, you thought you would be leaving your old house with nowhere to go, without hope, without anyone to help you. But instead, now you're building not just a new home on a new lot, but you're building a new community of friends who have helped you to all start again. Now that is a fantastic story, isn't it? I visited Marites in early April. I got to see the beginnings of her new home. She was so thankful that the Transform program had come to her village. The 2 trainers, Phoebe and Glenn, they spent many hours with the ladies in that community. They left a permanent impact. And ICM's Transform program is uniquely designed to meet the needs of women like Marites. When you talk about the poor of this world, they are not all the same. As I said earlier, there's a global poverty line, $2.50 per person per day. Then there's what's called extreme poverty, a level that threatens survival, just above $1 a day. And then there are people like Marites. And she lives just on 48 U.S. cents, 21 pesos per day in a good year. She belongs to that group of people we refer to the ultra-poor. They live on less than half of the global standard of extreme poverty. For Marites, hunger, malnutrition, lack of education, illness, disease, lack of sanitation, illiteracy, injustice, they are all a way of life. But at ICM, we believe that no human being should have to live like that. So we are passionately pursuing the transformation of ultra-poor lives right across the Philippines. And for people who have grown up with such incredible desperation their entire lives, their parents' lives, their grandparents' lives, their great-grandparents' lives, there is no simple answer. They need long-term holistic solutions for the complex problems and the mindsets that they face. Transform is a 4-month intensive interactive program that brings powerful tools, training, and support into a community. Let me just highlight 3 key ways that Transform works to bring Marites and ladies like her into better living conditions. First of all, and if you don't remember anything else from today, this is the thing you should remember. If you want to solve poverty, hope is the key. As you heard in Marites' story, she felt alone. She had huge burdens to carry. She didn't think that anyone could help her. She had been knocked down too many times. She had given up on her dreams, both for herself and for children. And the social scientists say that people living in extreme poverty situations experience about the same amount of stress as an American serviceman who returns from Afghanistan. Now, put that another way. Personally, I have 3 different sets of friends of people like me who are dealing with the death of one of their own child. They have just been completely disconnected from lives, and it takes them years to get over that. But in ICM's communities, 24% of all of the mothers have had one of their own children die. That means that if you're living in one of these communities, the chances are very high that either you or one of your neighbors on the right or left have lost a child. Now, when that happens time after time after time after time, how does that affect a whole society? Transform is designed to bring hope to those who are hopeless. We do this by helping individuals, but I also do it through whole communities. And there's been tons of research confirming that when you invest in strengthening the social networks of the poor, their connectedness to other people, then you are building a platform for lasting change, economically, educationally, socially. It's called social capital, the value that comes because you have people around you who care. And there are lots and lots of implications for those of us who fight poverty. There are many other charities that combat poverty by distributing stuff to try to address the problems of poverty. Some people see hunger and they give away food. Other people see sickness and they respond with medical missions or by distributing medicines. Some people see poor water, so they build water wells. Some see homelessness and they build houses. But at ICM, we see these as symptoms of poverty, not causes. And if you distribute stuff without changing the mindset of the poor, then they will not be able to fully benefit from your generosity. Now, how does this apply to someone like Marites? The relationships made during Transform had huge value in her life. She was able to find a new place to live thanks to the new community that she grew to trust. And through the values curriculum that is taught each week during Transform, she started to believe in herself and trust those around her. After Transform, our participants report a 35% increase in satisfaction with their families and a significant increase in family and satisfactory friendships. When people trust each other, they help each other. People share, lives are saved. Transform is all about building community that has a hope for a brighter future. And even though ICM staff members move on to another community after 4 months, the pastor, the 6 counselors, the 30 women, they all continue to meet together, building on the successes they've seen so far. You cannot underestimate the significance of developing hope in these communities. Now, hope has lots of implications. Through cultivating optimism, we also build healthy families. Malnutrition, lack of sanitation claim thousands of children's lives every month in the Philippines. Our health curriculum teaches basic hygiene, nutrition, disease prevention, sanitation that saves lives. Something as obvious as washing your hands after you go to the toilet or the CR can literally keep children alive. And we don't just teach, we give resources to support the training, like teaching families how to use tippy taps so that there's safe and hygienic ways for families to wash their hands. Transform also provides feeding for malnutrition, treatment for tuberculosis, deworming, rehydration tablets, and address many other health risks. We see amazing benefits through this health curriculum. 31% fewer people live with serious illnesses, and there are 23% more that have access to a toilet. Marites is hoping to build her own CR in her new home one day, but for now she's using her neighbor's CR. That's a luxury she didn't have at her old house. Now, a third way that Transform helps is by building sustainable income. The biggest problem Marites faced on a day-to-day basis was a lack of reliable income. Finances affect virtually everything in life, from education to food to shelter and to sanitation. But if you have hope, then anything is possible. Transform focuses on helping families, first to earn more income, and second to save it and to invest in their future. Marites and her community were taught new small business ideas every week. They were given the opportunity to learn through microloans to try them out to see for themselves if these small business ideas work. These business-in-a-box kits range from snack selling to soap production, and they're all designed as low-capital, quick-return businesses. Marites found that poodle cake production worked best for her. She sells them one at a time to others in her village. Each week she's earning an extra 300 pesos from her new business. And she's discovered that making poodle cakes for birthday parties, that is the best business because then she gets to sell them by the dozen. And that means that during the hard months, she is able to supplement their family's income by 80% because of what she learned through the Transform program. And what does she do with her new earnings? Well, she's able to provide food for her family. They can now eat 3 meals a day, and even more importantly, they now eat more nutritious, healthy food. And they have been able to rebuild their new home with sturdier materials. She's also part of her community's savings groups. Planning for the future is an obvious concept to you and I, but to the ultra-poor who have always lived one day at a time, it's a new discipline to learn. And our livelihood training teaches of the importance of saving for the future. Marites saves 10 pesos per week right now, along with many others in her savings group. And when that savings gets bigger, she wants to buy new cooking pots so that she can make even more poodle cakes every day. And she says she wants to start selling them at school down there. She said, now that would be a good business. And as I said earlier, her life story is not unusual. And the success that she has seen from Transform is not unusual either. We did not look for the very best participant from our communities. We asked her to be involved because she was literally at the median of the people that go through our program. And what is so encouraging to us is that this kind of change consistently happens across the program, across the country, real permanent change. After Transform, our ultra-poor participants report a 95% increase in household income, 27% reduction in those going to bed hungry at least once a week. And the families, they invest their savings wisely. 23% more have their own CR, 19% fewer scrapped roofs, 15% fewer dirt floors. And there's so many other amazing changes I could tell you about. We have spreadsheets and spreadsheets and spreadsheets of data. We have collected 40 million data points. And if you are a statistician, I would love to sit down and tell you. I'm telling you, it gives me adrenaline. Let me just give you a minute to update you on Marites personally herself. We visited her in her community a couple of months ago when the Transform program was only halfway through. And since then, her community has continued the program with enthusiasm. Her 4-month Transform program graduated at the very last day of May, so just about 2 months ago. At the end of every graduation program, there is an award that ICM gives to 3 people: the person who's best in values, the person who's best in health, and the person who's best in livelihood. So take a look at who wins. These sorts of transform graduations that they happen at the end of every 16 weeks, they are almost always emotional. For many people, like Marites, they are the only time these ladies have ever graduated from anything in their entire lives. At ICM, we're trying to develop a Philippine solution to poverty that can help the poor of the Philippines, but that Philippine solution can eventually be rolled out to other countries around the world as well. It'd be really refreshing to have a solution to poverty that originated in Asia instead of a solution that was birthed in the Western Hemisphere or in the Indian subcontinent. But we can't do this alone. We need partners. We need resources. In the last decade, about 80% of the cash we needed to run ICM's programs came from individuals in Hong Kong. Last year, only 2% of our budget came from donors inside the Philippines. We want to bring hope across this country, but we need the support of donors inside the country as well. Now, perhaps some of you may be one of those donors, or perhaps you would like to introduce us to a donor, or maybe you work with a foundation or a group that can partner with ICM to reach the poorest people in this society. And if so, of course, we'd love to talk to you. At any rate, I want to thank you for your attention. Thanks very much.